This week's episode is brought to you by The Doors. Love me two times, who? And also by Chick-fil-A. Homophobic, but good chicken. Hello, friends. It's your old pal, Uncle Guy, and welcome back to another episode of the Guy Macchia Show, where I talk about pretty much anything I want. And today I'm going to talk about something that we all do, which is eating. And don't mind me, I decided to get dressed up. Why am I qualified to talk about eating? From a clout scientific perspective, I have a master's in biomedical sciences, which is just a fancy word or terminology for anatomy and physiology. And more anecdotally, I am the proud owner of 6 5-day water fasts. I've been keto for 2 years. I've been vegan for 2 years. I've blended my food for a week. I've done one meal a day. I've done carnivore, paleo, and every single thing in between. I have been on a crusade over the past 10 years to parse out what's phony and what's true when it comes to optimization of the diet. So, this episode is going to talk about some of my experiences and hopefully instill upon you the gift that I have given myself, which is the power of intuitive eating, knowing what your body wants, when it wants, and when you want to consciously indulge. I think that's the key here, conscious indulgence. I will start by letting you know that at some point in my life, probably 10 years ago, I went on a crash diet to begin my modeling career. I was told to lose 10 pounds by my first modeling agent. I ended up losing 20. I did so by going on a diet that was strictly all protein for the most part. 10 out of 10 don't recommend. Your body needs carbohydrates and fats as its primary source of energy, and protein as its primary source of muscle building. Protein is not an efficient source of energy. And I learned that the hard way when my libido went down real fast. Didn't really even have the ability to muster a good old tug on myself for a small period of time. And that was when I discovered the keto camp, when I discovered that fat could potentially be a better energy source than carbohydrate, which I guess was not at the time about 10 years ago, was not ubiquitous, was not common. So I start eating healthy fats and I see my libido increase markedly. And I joined the keto camp hard. I am a keto adopter and I will go to war about how good fat is for you. Screw carbs. If you're a carb lover, you're a loser. And I did notice that being keto is really hard. People don't really even know what the definition of ketosis is, and how much fat and how little protein and vegetables and all that other stuff you're supposed to eat. And you end up going a little insane. Is that keto? Is that keto? I got to bring an avocado with me to a restaurant, make sure that my ratio is right. It's not a great way to live your life. And so at some point during the pandemic, I get a little tired of the keto thing and we're all doing experimental shit. So I decide, since I wasn't drinking at the time, to go raw vegan as well. So during the pandemic, I go raw vegan. I make it about 19, 20 months. And I was in. I was all in on the vegan train. I adopted keto or abandoned my keto lifestyle. Being vegan is the way. Plant-based, baby. I'm gonna live forever. And before I talk about what ended up breaking that vegan spell, I will say that, and this is written on my whiteboard as an affirmation, the wrong objective yields dissatisfaction. And what that means is if you don't have a proper goal identified, you are always going to miss the mark. And the wrong goal that I had was wanting to live forever, right? When really I just wanted to look good. But I had told myself that I wanted to live forever, and that led to the keto camp. That led to the vegan camp. But ultimately, neither of those methodologies or dogmas are the most efficient way to look good. So you got to identify your goals properly. And I break my vegan spell because it's towards the end of the pandemic, 2021. My grandmother, Antoinette, God rest her soul, was 91 years at the time, and she comes over to my house. I'm living with my parents, and she tees up a quarter of a pie of tiramisu. I'm talking about a wad like this big. It's 3 p.m. for her first meal of the day. She's breaking a fast with 500 grams of sugar. And I'm eating red lentil penne from Trader Joe's. I'm preparing red lentil penne. And I don't know if you've ever seen the look of disappointment, but it's explaining to your Italian grandmother the process of granulating beans or grains and creating pasta out of them. Like she was ready to keel over at that exact moment. And she looks at me and she says, Guy, you got to live a little bit. So I look at her, I look at the clock, I look at the mound of tiramisu that she's about to ingest, and I have a aha moment where I say, what the fuck? I got it all wrong. You're 91, right? That's a ripe old age. That's good. You're good. And you're chilling. You got your faculties, and you are eating tiramisu for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, technically. I think that was the only thing she ate all day. So I'm asking myself, what am I doing by torturing myself with the keto and the vegan, by being so strict? Right? Do I want to live a long time or do I want to look good? And if the goal is the latter, can I do that in a more enjoyable way? And the answer is an unequivocal yes. Now, it's a little complex, um, and the scope of which is not going to be discussed fully in this episode. What I want to talk about in this episode is the way that food controls us, as it did me while I was keto, while I was vegan, and for a large majority of my adolescence, young adulthood. And the thing that really broke my reliance on food was my first ever 5 day water fast. And during this time, I mean, can you imagine? You've never fasted before. You're on day two. So you're hour 40 into 120 hours of not eating. As an Italian Jew who's literally gorged themselves at every single opportunity prior to that point. That's the true hallmark of torture, right? You're in it. I had never tortured myself like that before. And I realized I had a goal. I could either take a deep breath, one at a time, keep moving, just keep linking breaths together until I got there, or I could squirm. And honestly, there was a little bit of both, right? I would squirm and then I would take a deep breath. And eventually I got there. And day five was one of the most euphoric, beautiful days I've ever experienced in my entire life. But I tell that story because I didn't realize how much eating was factoring into my life in the sense that I wasn't enjoying life. I was using food as a vessel. I wasn't even really enjoying food. I was using my meals as a way to break up the mundanity of my day. And then while I was eating, I was scrolling whatever I was scrolling and not enjoying any of it until I got to the next meal. And I call this kind of the merry-go-round of misery. That's what I would later hash that term with my boy. This sense of not being in control. And food, which is something that we need to control us, is dangerous, right? It's more pervasive than drugs because we need food. You need nutrients. But there's this thing that ropes you in. Hey, look at me. Sweets, whatever, chicken, burgers, whatever, right? To the detriment of the present moment. We look forward to these things so much so that we miss the present moment. And that's what I was doing at least. And I term this killing time, right? I was using food as kind of these checkpoints to help me kill time. And I was on this merry-go-round of misery. And at the same time, I was working this corporate job that I didn't like. It was causing me dissatisfaction. And we coined the term merry-go-round of misery because let's just say you're a fit, regular person who has a corporate job. You go to the gym every day. You build yourself up to a 6 or 7, 6.5, 7 on Thursday, right? You've gone to the gym, you put a couple good days in, a couple drops in the bucket, and then the weekend comes and you black out 3 days in a row. Sunday is desolate, and you wake up at a 3.5 on Monday, and you just do it again. and again and again. Desultory exemplified. No purpose, no path, just continued mediocrity. And what I ultimately realized is if you don't control what you put in your mouth, if you can't control what goes into your mouth, what do you truly have control over? For me, the answer was nothing. I couldn't control what I put in my mouth, and therefore I couldn't control the outcomes of any other avenue in my life, including my job, my career. And so I was on this desultory path, just waiting to die, right? No purpose, nothing. And so I do this fast, and I'm able to start realizing what my relationship to food is doing to me and how it's bled into other avenues of my life. And fortunately, I was able to hop off the merry-go-round. And now my life is not perfect, but I own it. In the 10 years since I've quit that corporate job, I've created my own movement business, coaching business. I'm doing whatever the hell that this is, trying to help the people. And I'm having fun, most importantly. And I feel like I have autonomy. I gained autonomy because I know what goes into my body and I don't stress it anymore. And that used to be a big stressor to me. And that energy that I'm now no longer using, worrying about what I'm going to eat, when I'm going to break my day up, is now being used in more creative, fun outlets. And I feel true growth has progressed since that time. So I'm very proud of myself for hopping off the merry-go-round. And now eating in a way, I mean, I put on 60 pounds of muscle in the past 6 years, 60 plus, right? Obviously, I'm a little bit of a dumpster now. I don't care as much what goes into my body. And maybe that's not good for me. But at the end of the day, I've resolved to the fact that what is that going to cost me in the long run, given all the other things I do to keep myself fit? 10 days, 20 days, 50 days, a year, right? I'd rather look good, live well, and go out at 85. 82, 3, man, not whatever. But have lived well, enjoyed myself, struck a nice balance, and been as present as possible and not allow food to pull me out of the present moment. And I would say the ultimate sign of control that food had over me was the week that I decided to blend my food during the pandemic. Yes, we were all doing some weird stuff. And I had this revelation that if we don't digest well, if that's part of why we're storing so much fat, maybe I'll circumvent the first step of digestion, which is mastication, chewing, and I'll just granulate my food. And so I don't even have to worry about chewing. And that lasted about a week. Um, my sister would shed some good light on that. She had a 1 year old son at the time, and she'd say it's interesting because we're trying to get Mac off of or onto solids, and you're at 30 years old hopping off them. That's weird. And I realized that was a little weird. She would later go on to say, "Hey, I don't know what you're going to do with your future wife, girlfriend, when you're sitting at a restaurant. You're like, hey, honey, can we get this chicken parm to go? I left my Ninja at home." Right? That shed some things, put some things into perspective for me. So I recalculated, recalibrated. I have also eaten one meal a day. I remember leaving social settings, preparing that meal, bringing that meal with me out into Manhattan, leaving social settings for an hour to eat a 3,200 calorie meal in my car. Right? That's obsession. That's not healthy. And I don't do those things anymore. I can tolerate sitting at a bar that has pub food and eating chicken tenders and fries or whatever have you, making a good choice, making a bad choice, and not beating myself up about it, not worrying about the years I'm shedding off my life. And most importantly, not worrying about looking bad because I figured out a way to work out for myself that allows me and enables me to put on muscle based on pretty much everything I eat. And that's how I put on 60 pounds of muscle in the past 6 years, right? I'm not worried anymore. I have a path and a belief and proof that my method of eating and living is sustainable for myself. And I can't even begin to tell you how freeing that is to not have to worry about something so critical and time consuming as what you're going to eat and how it's going to affect your ability to process and take on your goals is the most freeing thing I've done in the past 10 years. And so that's really what I hope to give to you from this episode is to take control of your diet, whatever that means and looks like to you. Now, I'm not a doctor and I cannot recommend you do potentially dangerous things like stop eating for 120 hours, but consider that just as an option and what that does for you. And I want to close with what I think that fast ultimately did for me and how it changed and altered my life. I will talk about something that a family friend of mine passed along to me, an article about a basketball player named Kyle Korver, a retired basketball player. He was a great white 3-point shooting, defending basketball player for a handful of years. And he went through a little bit of a lull in his career. And what it was recommended to him by a coach that he undergo or partake something called a masoji. And a masoji is a Japanese rite of passage. It's the processing or completion of a task or goal or challenge that can't really be prepared for or trained for. It's a little abstract. And the goal or the objective that Kyle and his group decided to undergo was swimming to a bay. They or in a bay. They were all wading water. They were all treading water in a bay that was about 15 feet deep, and they sunk a boulder, like I think a 80-pound boulder to the bottom of this bay. And they had the objective of moving this boulder, I think 3 miles or so. There was five of them, 3 miles underwater. They would take turns swimming down to the bottom, move this boulder as far as they could. The whole group would move and they'd go on. I think it took them like 5+ hours, something maybe more. Maybe I'm getting the numbers wrong. I don't know. The key is they completed it. And Kyle went on in the last third of his career to have an amazing last third of career. And he attributes the Masoji, that Bay Masoji, to a lot of his success. And I think what it did for him, if I can remember correctly, is it destigmatized fear. Um, it allowed him to realize that nothing is as concrete or serious as we make it out to be. And he was able to play more freely. And that's what my fast did for me. I was able to realize the rigidity I had around food, and I was able to play my life more freely, not worry as much, just take shots and enjoy a glass of wine here and there. And, sometimes things get a little more out of hand than you anticipate, but it beats the shit out of waking up every day and compartmentalizing your food and worrying about your macros and what will go wrong if you don't hit your macros. I'm telling you that as a fact. So if you're a macros counter, I'm here to tell you that there's a better way. And if you're somebody who has zero idea and eats like an asshole, I'm also telling you that there's a better way somewhere in between. So I hope this episode is helpful to you. Um, I will be here. Questions, comments, concerns, ask away. I'm sure there will be more dialogue about exactly what I eat, what it looks like in the future. But for now, just know you can eat French toast every once in a while, and you're not going to turn into a fucking puddle of shit guy. Advice from me, my prior self, and to you. So thank you for listening. I hope this has been helpful. Have a blessed day and peace.